Hey, everybody, I wanted to get a video out to you on the ownership of property and being an investor or being a landlord, owning homes that, or some type of structure of building, could be commercial, could be multifamily, single family residential, that you are renting out. And more than likely, we're managing that property for you. With that, what I wanted to talk about is looking at this as a business. And there's different types of landlords. There's true investor landlords that have multiple units, and they're sometimes single families, like I mentioned. They may have some multiple families in there. They may have some commercial properties. We get kind of accidental landlords that maybe inherit a property, or they were living in a home and they got into another home. Now they're kind of stuck renting this one out because maybe for some reason it wasn't a good time to sell it. So they're kind of stuck renting that one out. Or maybe it's somebody who's starting out that wants to be a large scale investor. Maybe it's their first property or their second property. No one is better than the other. They're just a little bit different. And sometimes they're different in experience level as to where they are, in the big scheme of things, where that owner is. But one thing I try to make sure that everybody understands, no matter which situation you find yourself in, is that it's a business. And quite often when we have people that have, say, accidentally stumbled onto something, it takes a little time for them to get used to the idea that you're not living in the home. It's a business and somebody else is living in that home. Sometimes when people have lived in a home, also, we see that they're very attached emotionally to that home. And I get it. I totally understand that. I have properties that I own that I used to live in, and you have that connection. I get it. But I had to tell myself that, okay, I'm not living here anymore. This is now part of my business. And with that, what I tell folks is, when you're going into this, there's a couple things you really want to keep in mind. And I just actually, those of you that know me that are getting this know that I have a book out on real estate that went international bestseller, and I just finished another one on owning properties and having essentially an investment business and building a portfolio. And that one's getting ready to come out pretty soon. But one of the things I tell folks is, first and foremost, this is a business. Secondly, you need some reserves set aside. I get asked that question all the time. How much should I have set aside in reserves? And why do I need it in reserves? Isn't money just going to roll in? No, it's not. You need reserves. Why do you need reserves? You're going to have people that don't pay rent. You're going to have vacancies. You're going to have evictions. You're going to have repairs in a property. It's just going to happen. The nature of the business. We see things quite often where we have tenants pay sporadically. We'll send out payment and we try to get the large payment out in the first part of the month. And the reason is that we try to get this out is because we know you have mortgages to pay. So maybe your property is on Section 8, or maybe your tenant sends in a large sum, but not all of it. And when that comes in, you may see through the month multiple payments going out to you. Well, why is that? That's because we know you're operating a business and you have expenses. So we try to get that out to you. But I tell people when they're first starting out, have at least 6 months set aside for a property. And if you have that, you're not in panic mode when something goes wrong, or your tenant gives notice they're moving out, or the water heater goes out, or somebody's not paying all their rent. Whatever the case is, you don't automatically kick into panic mode. And that's the goal. We want you to be comfortable in this business and not staring at the ceiling at night going, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? How am I going to make these payments? It's not a great condition to be in. So go into this with it in mind that this is a business and you do need money in reserve, just the way it is. Secondly, understand that the condition that when you give your house to a tenant, and when I say give, I mean lease it to a tenant. Here's just the reality. Here's the long and short of it. The chances of that house coming back looking exactly like it did when you rented it to them are very slim. When you rent a car when you're on vacation, it's possible you might not drive that car like it's your own car with the same care. Well, we see that sometimes with tenants. We screen as best we can, and maybe somebody looks good on paper, and then they get in there and we see something different. And it's just something I need every owner that I come in contact with to truly understand that they're not living in the property anymore. It is a business. You need to be making a profit. And you got to understand that the reality of it is when that tenant moves out, there's going to be repairs. Very seldom do we ever see a property that a tenant moves out of that we don't have to go in and repair something. And every landlord that I ever speak with has experiences the same thing. And you try to minimize those repairs, and you're hoping that the monies that are set aside or that are held as a security deposit will cover all that. But I'm going to tell you straight up, sometimes they don't. So how do you combat that? What do you do? Here's what I do. This just works for me. I recommend talk to your financial planner and see what works best for you. But I make sure that every property that I own, I turn a profit on that property, or I'm not going to get into the property. I'm not there to break even with rent, with monthly rent, and then say, well, I can depreciate the property or I can write off the interest on the property. To me, that's icing on the cake. What I'm looking for is, am I going to make a monthly profit on that property? That's the first goal. And what I do with the monthly profit that I receive on each property, I put it all into an account. Every dime of it goes into account. If I have mortgage payments, I make the mortgage payment, but whatever the remaining amount of that profit is goes into an account. And what am I doing? I'm combining all of the properties into one, trying to grow that account. And when that account grows to a certain number, I know I can go buy another property. Now, this is in addition to having reserves set aside. And so if I have reserves set aside, I'm secure because I know if there's a repair, a vacancy, a shortage on rent, an eviction, whatever, I'm good there. I don't have an issue there. And then secondly, all of the profit that's coming in from each property goes into a separate account. Now, I do recommend this. Pull a percentage of your monthly profit out and set it aside for a rainy day. And what is that rainy day? The rainy day is when that tenant moves out and you need carpet, you need paint, you need to fix some things that are in the property that are going to happen. You just got to understand that it's going to happen. So you want to make a profit. You want to take a portion of that profit, set it aside, and make sure that that money is there. So when these folks move out, you don't have an issue of not being able to rehab the property. I'm not a financial advisor, and I'm not trying to give you financial advice. I recommend talk to your attorney, talk to your financial planner about this to make sure that they're on board. But I see landlords every day that are struggling, and the reason they're struggling is because they're in panic mode. They don't have the ability to weather that storm, and it's really, really important that you're able to do that. So, again, my recommendation: take your profit, stick it in an account, and make sure a portion of that profit is set aside to cover things when the tenant moves out of the property or emergencies. If you don't have to use it, great. You just have a nice little nest egg sitting there. But I don't recommend blowing that money every single month and having it gone, and then you're in panic mode when things go bad. I do strongly recommend to every tenant or every landlord that I deal with to not get into a property unless they're going to make a profit on it. I hope this helps. Feel free to reach out with any questions. Easiest way to get me, email. All of you have our staff number here. If there's any issues, please feel free. Reach out to that number as well. But hopefully this helps. And again, just keep this in mind. It's a business. There are going to be repairs. You do need reserves. And the property is probably not going to look the way it looked the day that you leased it or rented it to these folks. And you can't let that stress you out. Now, do you want them to, massive damage? No, that's not what I'm talking about. But there are going to be things that do occur. inside a home, because again, tenant living in there may not be taking the care of it that you did if you lived there or when you lived in that property. Again, I hope this helps out. Mike Barbanica for Blue Line Property Management. And again, we're not trying to give legal advice or financial advice. I recommend talk to a professional for that. Thanks very much and have a great day.